At the beginning of the movie, our three main characters, Dean, JT, and Wes, find themselves in a tricky situation. It's Halloween night, and they decide to get back at a neighbor who didn't give out Halloween candy. They leave a bag of dog poop on his doorstep and set it on fire. However, things don't go as planned, and the fire spreads to the neighbor's scarecrow. Despite their efforts, they can't put out the flame. When Dean rushes inside the house, he realizes nobody is there. Since the fire department and the police will be there any minute now, Dean takes off his underwear and writes the name Ricky Stanicki on it, hoping that the blame will shift to a fictitious, out-of-town kid. The trio then hide themselves in a nearby bush while the authorities arrive to investigate the matter. Soon after, a cop finds the underwear and they believe Ricky Stanicki is responsible for the fire. As our mischievous trio watches the authorities investigate, JT gasps in disbelief, saying that he cannot believe their plan actually worked. From then on, they use the character of Ricky Stanicki as a scapegoat whenever they need to explain their misdeeds. Fast forward to 20 years later, the trio continues to rely on Ricky Stanicki as their excuse to avoid life's obligations and dodge trouble. JT and his wife, Susan, are currently preparing for a baby shower, with Dean and his girlfriend, Erin, helping them out. Just as they're getting ready, Dean receives a call from Ricky, who is actually Wes, claiming his testicular cancer has returned, and he's alone in Albany, New York. Both Erin and Susan urge their partners to go support Ricky. In the next scene, Dean and JT prepare to leave for New York and bid farewell to their partners. Outside, they meet their friend Wes, who's waiting for them in the car. It turns out that the trio used their imaginary friend Ricky to get away for the weekend. They actually have tickets to see Mark Rebier in Atlantic City, New Jersey. As they board their flight, they switch off their phones after posting updates as Ricky. As usual, they add entries to their Bible of Ricky Stanicki, where they record all the adventures they enjoyed in the name of their imaginary friend. They eventually land in Atlantic City and head to a bar, where they meet Rock Hard Rod. Rod is an actor and impersonator who sings humorous songs with adult themes. He starts impersonating different actors, but JT, Dean, and Wes are not particularly impressed. When Rod starts chattering nonsensical words, JT rudely asks him to leave them alone. After he leaves, Dean comments that they should have been kinder to him. He then follows Rod and apologizes to him for the rude behavior. Just then, the impersonator recognizes two men who are after him. He quickly gives Dean the business card and asks him to give him a call if they ever need help related to his expertise. He then hides behind a gaming counter and tells Dean that the two men across the table are currently searching for him. He has taken some money from them, but since he was unable to repay the debt, they are now determined to kill him. Shortly after, Dean switches on his phone and sees missed calls from his girlfriend. He calls her and gets the news that JT's wife Susan has gone into labor 6 weeks early, prompting them to rush back home. Arriving at the hospital, they find out that Susan has already given birth to a baby boy named Whitaker. Dean nearly slips out the details of their trip, so he hastily makes up a lie. He explains that Ricky fabricated the cancer story to celebrate being cancer-free for 5 years with his closest friends. JT's mother-in-law remains skeptical about the existence of Ricky Stanicki because none of their family members have ever met him. She then suggests JT invite Ricky to his son's bris, the Jewish rite of circumcision. Our trio excuses themselves outside as they're on the brink of getting exposed. While Wes feels it's time to confess, Dean and JT argue against it. After all, they will be in serious trouble in case people find out that Ricky doesn't exist at all. Dean then remembers Rod, the impersonator, from their trip and opts to hire him to act as Ricky Stanicki. Later, he calls Rod and asks him to impersonate their imaginary friend, to which the latter readily agrees. In the next scene, the trio arrives at the airport to pick up Rod. On the way back home, they discuss the payment. They want to pay him half right now and the other half later when the work is done. Rod reluctantly agrees to this condition. He is then given the Bible of Ricky Stanicki to help him know the details about the character and impersonate perfectly. Since Wes is the only one unmarried and living alone, the trio decides to keep Rod at his place for now. At the bris ceremony, Dean and JT look worried because Rod hasn't arrived yet. Much to their surprise, he makes a grand entry and charms everyone, including JT's mother-in-law, Ted Summerhays, Dean and JT's boss, with his portrayal of Ricky. He even flirts a little with Carly, Aaron's cousin, and discusses business with Summerhays, impressing him. When Dean and JT ask where he learned to act so well, Rod reveals that he fully observes the behavior of the character to be impersonated. For instance, he had finished reading The Bible of Ricky Stanicki the other night, due to which he can perform their imaginary friend impressively. Just then, Rod sees a familiar face, who turns out to be Carly's ex, Gary Polisner. When he hints that he knows Polisner, the trio devise a plan to drug Polisner with a ketamine pill. They then casually invite Polisner to a game where they throw peanuts into his mouth. While doing so, they plan to throw the pill as well. However, during the game, the rabbi unexpectedly takes Polisner's place and ingests the pill instead. He soon begins to feel drowsy and unwell. During the circumcision ceremony, the ketamine pill takes full-on effect on the rabbi. As a result, he ends up only partially circumcising JT's baby. In a surprise turn, Ricky steps in and uses Summerhays' cigar cutter to complete the procedure, much to everyone's relief and celebration. After the ceremony, the trio bid farewell to Rod and even give him extra cash because he did his job so well. That evening, they head to a bar and promise to never talk about Ricky again. However, the following day at work, Summerhays announces that he's hired Rod in preparation for the company's merger with World River, a major firm from San Francisco. Summerhays was impressed by Rod's business mind. JT and Dean are utterly shocked by this news. They confront Rod, who's setting up his new office room. He refuses to listen to them because he's finally landed a good job. Dean and JT also learn that he's being paid much more than them, only further fueling their frustration. Just then, Dean's girlfriend also drops by with exciting news. She has landed a reporting gig for a local news channel's Hero of the Week segment. She's eager to cover Ricky because he had told her about his supposed humanitarian endeavors at the party. Dean and JT then video call Wes and inform him about the situation. Wes reminds them that he had wanted to confess the truth from the start and evade falling into such a fiasco. The next day at a company meeting, while Summerhays is presenting about their market share, Rod casually records him. Dean, hoping to get him fired, asks him to share his opinion on the current business strategy. Rod, who is completely unaware of what the company does, speaks gibberish for a while. However, he ends his speech by saying that they need to work like a non-profit to attract long-term customers. Summerhays is impressed and decides to initiate a charity organization based on Rod's suggestion. He even appoints him as head of the World River merger, replacing Dean. Later, Dean and JT talk to Rod at their office, continuing to pressure him into resigning. Just then, Wes arrives, donning a fine suit. He reveals that Rod has hired him as his assistant, emphasizing that now he has a real job. Wes explains that Dean and JT never helped him secure a job. Frustrated, Dean drags Rod to the storeroom and starts beating him up. He threatens to expose him and even reveals that his girlfriend is writing up a story on his fake biography. However, the impersonator explains that he cannot go back to New Jersey because his creditors will kill him. Hearing this, Dean starts becoming emotional as he reflects on his own life problems. He admits to feeling guilty about lying to his girlfriend about Ricky and fears that she will leave him when she realizes what a liar he is. Dean feels hopeless as he faces the prospect of losing his job and relationship with Aaron once Ricky's true identity is exposed. When he leaves the room, we see that Rod has been recording their encounter all this time. Later, he returns home and decides to reveal the truth to his girlfriend. Much to his surprise, Aaron is already aware of his deception. As a reporter, she initially indulges herself in research before creating a compelling story for the audience. Therefore, when she did some digging on Ricky, she surprisingly discovered that he didn't exist at all. Aaron is pretty mad at Dean for lying to her on multiple occasions. The following day, at a party between Summer Hayes Company and World River, they plan to premiere Ricky's Hero of the Week segment. Dean bravely confesses to all the guests that Ricky Stanicki is a fabrication. He explains that he, along with his best friends JT and Wes, created the fictional character Ricky to evade punishment while they were young. They continued betraying their loved ones under the pretense that they had to be with their imaginary friend. Dean offers his sincere apologies before promptly departing from the event. Summer Hayes is understandably mad at JT and Dean. Just then, the screen plays the Hero of the Week segment. Rod, now legally known as Richard Barbara Stanicki, shares his story with the reporter, recounting how he met Dean and how the Ricky Stanicki Bible inspired him to turn his life around. He explains that he used to be nobody, earning only a handful to afford a meal or two to sustain his life. However, his life transformed completely when he met Dean, JT, and Wes in New Jersey. He then expresses gratitude for the new people in his life. Just as Summer Hayes is on the brink of firing Dean, the executives from World River express their enthusiastic approval of hiring Ricky. They seem to be moved by Rod's story, so they want to proceed with the merger. Summer Hayes and Dean both are elated to go ahead with the merger, and they shake hands to seal the deal. Upon discovering the truth about Ricky, Susan imposes a 6-month backyard camping trip on JT as a punishment. Meanwhile, Erin confides in Dean that she's chosen to pursue the story of Rod's transformation into Ricky and publish it. Our hero apologizes to her and asks for forgiveness. She knows it won't be easy, but when she hears the recording of Dean telling her how much he loves and appreciates her, it helps her feel better. Back at the party, Ricky surprises the trio by announcing that Carly is now his fiancée, and they collectively plan to dedicate their upcoming weekend to environmental cleanup efforts. As the credits roll, a montage of videos and pictures is shown, where Ricky and his new friends are engaged in various acts of community service, including cleaning up the environment. Carly is seen donating her hair to children in need, while Wes celebrates becoming a published author. JT is shown brushing his teeth outside, accompanied by Susan and his newborn son watching nearby. The montage also features heartwarming moments, such as everyone cheerfully posing at Dean and Erin's wedding.